Hello everybody, I'm Raphael Perry and it's time for some more Lone Wolf. And we're going to do something slightly different tonight. You may recall that in the previous episode, when I reached section 149, I was faced with two choices between the eastern door and the western door. The eastern door being marked with a mortar and pestle, where we would likely find the medicine to alleviate our ailment, and the western door being marked with the symbol of an open book. Now, as a player, I know full well that the long-term objective for this book 5 is a book, a special magical book. And that if something related to the book may be behind that door, I should absolutely go there. As Lone Wolf, I did not know this yet. This information has not been revealed to him. And, however, upon entering the apothecary, I was not aware that this was a path of no return, a point of no return, in fact. Whereas the western door is not a point of no return, and contains a pair of items that I strongly believe will be vital to the completion of our quest, at least one of them. And to play all the way through the adventure, only to find, oh no, I've missed this important item this much earlier on, is a good opportunity to play and experience upcoming challenges and know what I'm doing. But in terms of an enjoyable playthrough for you guys, you don't want to see me play through the whole first half of the book again, do you? Now, the fights in and under Barraka have been of such a level of challenge that my healing discipline has always been able to fully restore my health to full endurance points by the time I reach the next fight. This is largely due to the fact that I have the Sommerlund with me. But even so, essentially, we've had suitable pauses and gaps in between combat that have allowed for recovery. So I'm going to pretend to go back and replay the entire first half of the book, taking all the same choices as before, and same items and everything, fighting through the same fights, and reaching section 149. I'm not even going to pretend to do it off camera, because it is my firm belief that unless I rolled particularly high for the damage from these smoke spiders, I would pretty much be at full health at this point. I would like to explore the book room before continuing onwards, because while I glanced at it last time, I will definitely show what I'm missing. So first off, I'm going to reread section 149. Then I'll go to section 100. Then I will check that it goes to section 57. After which I will skip to section 200, where we ended the previous section. And a vital revelation was made. Because this way, if I play through the second half of the book and something really bad happens and I have to go back to the beginning and start again, maybe I'm not going to say it, but maybe I could do something that would result in me not making it to the end of the book and even have a chance to use those items. I'm still not going to say it. The temptation is strong. But I'll probably bring it up when the time comes. So for now then, you reach the door to the Vizu Dayar without being seen, only to find that it is securely bolted from the inside. You're about to curse your bad luck when you notice a window set into an elaborately carved panel above the door. Its iron shutter is open. In spite of your injured arm, you successfully climb the nail-studded door and drop through the window into the silence of the trophy room. An eerie collection of stuffed heads lines the walls of this private chamber. Most of those of reptilian desert creatures, souvenirs of imperial hunting expeditions into the dry main. Among the snake-like trophies, and more gruesome, are human heads. They are ghoulish battle honours, the heads of enemy commanders slain in battle during the countless wars raged by Vassagonia. You hurry out of the Vizu Dayar and into a long marble corridor where the walls are inlaid with veins of gold and pearls. It leads to a large hall where palace guards and brightly robed courtiers are walking to and fro, but a colonnade of statues provides all the cover you need to reach a distant staircase unseen. Stealthily you sprint up the staircase to arrive at a junction where passages head off to the east and west. At the end of each is a door engraved with a symbol engraved into the wall above. The symbol at the east door depicts a mortar and pestle. The symbol above the west door, an open book. Passing through the west door, we find that the marble door opens into semi-darkness, and the musty smell of old parchment wafts through the air. Row upon row of neatly stacked leather-bound books stands upon marble shelves, each one of which is beautifully decorated with intricate arabesques of fine gold leaf. Judging by the dates and inscriptions, you deduce that these books form a catalogue of all the treasures in the Grand Palace, many dating back hundreds of years. Every shelf of the small library is filled with books, every shelf, that is, save one, where on a purple silk cloth lie a copper key and a prism. If you wish to take either, or both of these items, mark the prism as a backpack item and the copper key as a special item, which you carry in your pocket on your action chart. Well, I will take the copper key. And if I wish to take the crystal prism, I will need to displace a backpack item. I'm keeping the rope, I'm keeping the towel. I'll need to make space for spare weed herb, so if I throw away whatever was in section 1 that I replaced the weed herb with, I'll still need to throw away something else to make room for the weed herb later. So I'm actually going to get rid of the potent Lormspur potion, or concentrated. Concentrated sounds like it's made from powder or from like apple concentrate. It's not so good, so we'll go with that one. It's interesting that the prism is a backpack item and not a special item. So either we have to pack it very safely and firmly, or there may be some other reason, I don't know. There is no exit from the library other than the marble door by which you entered. After satisfying yourself that nothing useful has been overlooked, you close the door and walk back along the corridor. When you reach the junction, you see a patrol of palace guards ascending the stairs. Without a moment's hesitation, you run towards the east door to avoid being seen, and we go into the mortar and pestle room. We fight the Elix. We find the Oeed herb in the back room and cure the limb death disease. We take some spare and progress to section 200, where it is revealed to us that the reach of the Dark Lords has grown long indeed, for one of them himself has entered this chamber. Upon a raised platform carpeted with scarlet fur sits the Vassagonian Emperor, Zakhan Kima. He is robed in gold, but devoid of all ornamentation. In his hand is an orb of black metal, and in his eye an ice-cold cruelty that chills your spine. The Zakhan is a man of awesome countenance, but he pales in the shadow of his companion. Before him stands the cause of your terror. A helm as black as death itself hides the face, but the stench of decay and the hideous sepulchral voice betray the entity. "Give me lone wolf." It is the fell voice of a mortal enemy, a dark lord of Helgadad. As the Zakhan rises to his feet, you notice a flicker of doubt, or perhaps of fear, dim his cruel gaze, but he is quick to mask it. "He will be brought to you at sunset in exchange for the Orb of Death. It is agreed." "You have the orb," echoes the chilling voice. "Give me lone wolf." The Zakhan hides his fear well, but time is not on his side. The game of bluff he is playing is deadly. However, the fact that he has not yet been discovered is evidence of his powerful will, for you sense the Dark Lord is persistently clawing and probing at his mind. "You will get your Northlander, Lord Harkon," says Zakhan, his voice curt with anger, "when you tell me why your servants defile the tomb of Marjan. You claim to have no need for gold and jewels. Why then do you plunder the graves of our ancestors?" A deathly quiet fills the hall. Only the unnatural hiss of the Dark Lord's breath disturbs the silence. "This land, this insignificant speck of sand, harbours two small thorns that prick our skin. We seek to remove them both, forever. The fledgling Kai, lone wolf, is the thorn that denies us Sommerlund. The tomb of the Marjan, the tomb of the Marjan hides the other thorn that threatens us, the accursed book of the Magna Kai." Your heart pounds as the words echo in your head. The book of the Magna Kai? Suddenly the reason why you have been enticed into a deadly trap becomes clear, and the sinister truth is revealed. The book of the Magna Kai is one of the oldest legends of Sommerlund. With the wisdom of the Magna Kai, Sun Eagle, the first Kai Grand Master, instilled the disciplines into the warriors of the House of Ulnar, the bloodline of your king, that were to save your land from the devastation at the hands of the Dark Lords. The Book of the Magna Kai was lost hundreds of years ago, but its wisdom was kept alive, handed down through generations of Sommlending warriors so that they could share the strength to resist their eternal enemies, the Dark Lords of Helgadad. If the Dark Lords discover and destroy the Book of the Magna Kai, the secrets will be lost forever, and when you die, the Kai will become extinct. However, if you discover the Book of the Magna Kai first and deny the Dark Lords their prize, all the wisdom of the Magna Kai will be revealed to you. Through its wisdom you will become strong enough to reach the ultimate achievement for a Sommlending warrior, to become a Kai Grand Master. However, the peril and the glory of the quest that lies ahead are distracting you from more immediate danger. To discover this danger and begin the quest for the Book of the Magna Kai, turn to Part 2 of Shadow on the Sand. The adventure begins at section 201. And before continuing, I want to say, while recording the tail end of the last episode, it occurred to me that Lord Harkon seems remarkably like Darth Vader, with his dark helmet, his deep echoing. So a sepulchral voice is like, it shouldn't be raspy, it should be kind of jagged and deep. Sort of, let me see. "You have the orb. Give me lone wolf." As opposed to the mellifluous tones of the Daft Invader himself. And I do like the fact that in the cover illustration, the helmet looks nothing like Darth Vader's helmet, but I'm sensing similarities. It's a bit like how when I was a teenager and first enjoying the Dragonlance stories, it did not occur to me at all that Lord Soth is just fancy Darth Vader. Anyway, let's set that aside. The title of The Shadow on the Sand, it is Shadow, not Shadows. I always read it as shadows, but shadow, I can think of two. First, imagine the shadow of the power of the Dark Lords that has come all the way from the Darklands, south and east, across, or rather around, Sommerlund and into Vassagonia, and across that great realm all the way to Barraka. So far has their power reached, if you imagine a great arm reaching out casting a shadow. However, there is another shadow that will be cast upon the sand in the not too distant future, hopefully. And that is related to the thing that I thought might end in the failure of our quest. For now, though, let us push on. Suddenly you catch sight of two warriors creeping towards you from a passage to your right. They are clad in jet-black armour and scarlet robes, and their hideous death masks identify them as Zakhan warriors. They are men, but they are evil men, as evil as the Dark Lords whom they serve. One of them holds a razor-fanged akataz, a creeping, leathery war dog straining on a chain leash. The Drakar hisses and the akataz springs for your throat. We could fight this creature or escape. If we fight it, those two are coming for us next. But I think we need to stop it. It's a dog-like creature. If it should, rake our back or something as we flee, our goal here is to escape from the trap, but we might need to strike this down before we can depart. The Akataz leaps through the air at your face. You fall backwards, kicking with both feet, but you are winded as the war dog jolts the air from your lungs. It slashes your shoulder, lose one endurance point. Before cartwheeling over the edge of the stairs, its howl cuts short as it smashes into the marble floor of the lower palace. Now, either way, I imagine that we would attract the attention of the Dark Lord. You spring to your feet and draw your weapon, for the Drakarim are running towards you. A terrible roar of hate and rage fills the hall. "Kill him!" The Drakarim unsheath their black swords, eager to obey their master's command. They attack you simultaneously, and have a combined combat skill of 18 and endurance of 35. Okay. Fortunately, as fate would have it, I'm applying the 1 point of damage. That still puts us in the plus 12 column. You can evade combat at any time by running into the adjoining passage, and to remember that to evade combat, we would fight a round of combat in which we could deal no damage. Which means if we could roll a 7+, we could just escape anyway. I will fight, however. We are not told to track how many rounds the combat has gone for. Yet. A 7. The enemy suffers 18 endurance points, reducing them to a total of 17, and Lone Wolf none. We shall roll again. Another 7. Both Drakarim are dispatched. The glowing sword of the sun. You glimpse the silhouette of Dark Lord Harkon in the hall below, his spiked fist raised. He's probably about to cast a spell. There is a deafening crack as a bolt of blue lightning streaks from the stone in the Dark Lord's hand and hurtles towards you. This section may very well have occurred if we fled and didn't fight the war dog. You dive for cover behind the body of the Drakar as the bolt explodes. In a flash of light, the Drakar is gone. Only cinders and the rotten odour of scorched flesh remain. You scramble to your feet and sprint along the passage. Another bolt hurtles from the hall, tearing into the ceiling with shattering effect. Splinters of razor-sharp marble whistle down, slashing your cloak and tunic. You race down some stairs through a silver archway and along a balcony that overlooks the lower palace. A peal of bells and the crunch of iron-shod boots echo in your ears. The Zakhan has sounded the alarm. His guards close in on every side. At the end of the balcony are another arch and a staircase. Both look deserted. Ooh, okay, now hang on. Apart from the fact that we've recovered our missing point of health here, The arch could lead to a balcony. The staircase could lead up. I think at the end of the balcony are another... Okay, no. The arch doesn't lead to a balcony. It leads back inside the building. Stairs then. My reasoning is that if it's a spiral staircase, I should be able to defend from above more effectively than from below. If they're trying to pursue me, if they're slowing down to run through an arch, that's one thing. If they have to run up steps, they could trip as well as trying to fit through a narrow bottleneck. The blood is pounding in your ears as you bound up the marble steps. 20 feet ahead of you there is a landing with a stone door set into the wall. The stairs continue to ascend to a parapet walkway, at the end of which is another stone door identical to the first. Suddenly the door on the first landing swings open and a palace guard wheels around to face you. "Machan!" he cries, fumbling for the hilt of his sword. We can attack him before he draws his weapon or just barge past him and continue up the stairs. We're doing that. We're trying to escape, not kill everyone. A crossbow bolt grazes your shoulder as you reach the walkway, making you dive for cover behind its low parapet wall. You lose 1 endurance point, which we're probably going to get back next section on Let's Fight. 2 more bolts ricochet from the stone lip barely inches from your head. The stone door is shut, secured by an iron bolt on this side. To pull open the bolt, you will have to expose yourself to crossbow fire, for the bolt is clearly in view above the lip of the wall, but we do have the discipline of mind over matter. It's not a combat section, we regain our health. You stare at the bolt, willing it to move. The sound of running footsteps behind you sends a cold shiver down your spine. You realize that the Dracorim are storming the stairs. Then, slowly, the bolt begins to move. As soon as it clears the bolt hole, you pull open the stone portal and race through, unaware of what lies beyond. Beyond the portal lies a vaulted corridor leading to a grand stairway. You narrowly avoid confrontation with a dozen Dracorim, saved by your lightning reactions. As the enemy rush from an archway on the second-floor landing, you dive behind a statue of the recently deceased Zakhan Mudala. They are so intent on their chase that they fail to notice your hiding place and hurry down the stairs, grunting in their heavy armor as they run. Probably crashing into the ones who are chasing up the stairs after me, and cursing and swearing each at the other a bit before they organise themselves and come back after us. Silently you give thanks to Zakhan Mudala, who is a very stout man, and that his statue casts a very large shadow in which to hide. Not who. Silently you give thanks that Zakhan Mudala was a very stout man, and that his statue casts a very large shadow in which to hide. At the top of the stairway you discover a hatch which gives access to the roof. You climb through it and follow a path of sun-bleached tiles that wind in and out of the domes and turrets, eventually leading to a bell tower. You are exhausted and need to rest, your mind still full of the shock of your encounter with Dark Lord Harkon, the sound of his terrible voice repeating the words, "Book of the Magna Chi," echoes again and again in your mind. With desperation sapping your will, you peer out through a grille in the bell tower. The sight before you renews your flagging hope, for it inspires a daring escape plan. Below the bell tower you see a line of Itikar pens, each with its own circular landing platform. Itikar are a breed of huge black birds that nest in eyries high in the peaks of the Dahir and Vakar mountains. The Vassagonians have long since tamed these giants of the skies, using them as winged mounts for their army leaders, their scouts, couriers, and envoys. An Itikaran rider swoop down out of the reddening sky and alight upon the platform nearest to the bell tower. Slaves hurl a rope to the rider, who in turn fixes it to a saddle ring before he jumps to the ground. The Itikar claws and beats its huge wings, but it is slowly winched into the pen by a hidden capstan. The rider and slaves leave the platform. There is now only one sentry on guard at the pen. If you can overpower him, you can make your escape on the back of the giant bird. If we had attempted to go through the door instead of the stairs, we would run into that guard, right? So the stairs would probably be the correct place. We do not possess a blowpipe and a sleep dart. Therefore, you leave the bell tower and make your way down towards the sentry. At first, dodging from one turret to the next, it is easy to remain unseen. However, for the final 30 yards on the landing platform, you will have no cover, for the platform and the palace roof are linked by an exposed gangplank. If you are to overpower the sentry, you must cross the gangplank undetected. We do still have the Kai discipline of mind over matter. Therefore, the rest of this section is irrelevant. Focusing your skill on a money pouch that hangs from the sentry's belt, you concentrate on untying the leather thong that secures it. Seconds later, the pouch drops to the ground and spills its contents. The guard yelps in terror as he sees his gold rolling over the edge of the platform and drops to his knees to gather what little remains. As he turns his back, you break cover and run across the gangplank. Your speed and stealth carry you across the gangplank undetected. When you strike, the guard is still on his knees, picking up his scattered gold. Your attack is silent and deadly. We can search the guard's body or ignore the body and hurry into the Itakar's pen. There's nobody else here. They could come back and disturb us, but I think we have time to search, and we may need something he has. You discover little of interest. 8 gold crowns and a brass whistle on a chain around the guard's neck. You may take these if you wish, but remember to mark them on your action chart. The brass whistle is a special item worn on a chain around the neck. We will take the brass whistle because we may need it to get the Itakar to cooperate. And 8 gold crowns takes us up to 47, a princely sum indeed. Suddenly a noise alerts you to unwelcome company. Drakarim are rushing along the tiled pathway that leads to the pens. Without a moment's hesitation, you turn and run inside the Itakar's enclosure. Oh joy. We do have animal kinship, we do not have an onyx medallion. That's okay though. The onyx medallion would have been from the previous book and would have belonged to a noble warrior who rode an Itakar himself. The great black bird beats its massive wings, cawing hoarsely through the domed pen. 2 black eyes, fierce and cold, fix you with a deadly stare as you edge nearer to its perch. Grabbing the saddle pommel, you haul yourself up, but suddenly there is a flash of razor-sharp talons. Instinctively you shield your face as a glint of orange sunlight is caught on the Itakar's curved beak, for it slashes the air barely inches above your head. We do, however, possess the discipline of animal kinship. It can take many years for a rider to tame an Itakar, for by nature they are wild and malicious creatures. You use your Kai skill to communicate with the giant bird, to assure it that you mean no harm, while a bunch of heavily armed and armoured angry men are trampling at high speed towards us. It fixes you with a cold, black stare, but you sense that it is no longer hostile. As you settle in its saddle, you catch sight of the Drakarim as they stream across the gangplank. Quickly you lean forward, unhook the anchor rope from the saddle ring, and grab the thick leather reins. Oh, he's falling. And his face mask is smashed. What a memory. We'll be opening that one for certain. Now, this is pre-book 9. So this is before the Drakarim gain a unified appearance. Before Book 9, they look more like Chaos Warriors, each unique and distinct in their own brand of personal horror. When it comes to Book 9, they are wearing much more of a uniform and have a distinct, specific look that becomes unique to them, and it's very, very recognizable. Actually, it may be slightly before Book 9. It might be Book 7 or something. Anyway. You are jerked backwards in the saddle as the Itakar leaves its perch. It shrieks and claws, its wings beating as loud as thunder. There should be a pause off. I'll do that again. You are jerked backwards in the saddle as the Itakar leaves its perch. It shrieks and claws, its wings beating as loud as thunder. A handful of Drakarim are scattered as if they were rag dolls as the great black bird emerges from the pen and takes to the sky. You catch a glimpse of a Drakar, his death mask slashed in two by the bird's razor-sharp talons, as he pitches from the landing platform and tumbles to his death in the palace gardens far below. The golden domes of the Grand Palace grow small as the Itakar gathers speed. Soon you have passed over the city wall and are heading out towards the shimmering salt flats of Lake Inrahim. The land below is bathed in beautiful orange twilight as the sun slowly sinks behind the Dahir mountains of to the west. Elated by your escape, you throw back your head and give voice to a triumphant yell that is carried away on the chill evening wind. As if in answer to your cry, an echoing chorus of shrieks pierce the sky. Fear returns to your heart as you catch sight of a flock of Kran, hideous, leathery-winged flyers. Each carries a Drakarim warrior on its back. They are over a mile behind you, but they are quickly closing the gap. Less than an hour of light remains. If you can evade them a little longer, you may be able to lose them when night falls. You must decide in which direction to fly, for you are now above the centre of Lake Imrahim. Consult the map before making your decision. We can steer the Itakar south towards the Dahir Pass, or east towards the town of Chula. Now, south towards... the Dahir Pass is here. Well, we're wanting to get to the No, that's Shadan Pass. Where are we trying to get to? Now. Oh, this is really difficult because we are definitely supposed to be flying, but I don't remember the portion flying on this bird. I remember something else. If you're familiar with this book, you'll know what I mean. Have we missed our flight? Have we missed our opportunity? I don't know. What I do know is this. Fighting Fantasy rule would suggest we head east towards Chula. However, thoughts. If we head towards Chula, that is a settlement, a location with a population. There will be witnesses. In theory, the Dark Lords are operating in secret here, and they would want to maintain that secrecy. They would not wish there to be many witnesses. However, the Drakarim have already committed to the pursuit, and they are not going to let up easily just because we're going somewhere where there might be a crowd. Or that would also endanger the crowd. If we're going to hide a big bird overnight in a town or village, that might not be so good. Among the mountain peaks, we may have a better chance of hiding. So, southwards. I recognise this picture. It's all good. A terrible shriek rings out above the rush of the wind, filling your head with pain. You're being attacked by a powerful mind blast. Unless you possess the Kai discipline of Mind Shield, deduct 2 endurance points from your current total. We do indeed have the discipline of Mind Shield. We've had it since Book 1. The Itakar shudders and frantically twists its head from side to side as the shriek rings out again. You sense the great bird is in agony, racked by the mind blast. As you glance over your shoulder, your stomach becomes knotted with fear. A Kran is swooping down to attack. On its back is your adversary, a Vordak, one of the undead and a hideous lieutenant of the Dark Lords. As the Kran streaks towards you, the Vordak spreads its red-robed arms and leaps from the saddle. It lands behind you, astride the Itakar's back. Its skeletal fingers sink deep into your mount's feathered flesh. The shock of the impact thrusts you forward and the reins slip from your hands. The giant bird screeches in horror and pain as the Vordak's grip paralyzes its spine. You must act quickly, for the Yitkar is now plummeting towards the salt plain of Lake Inrahim, and the Vordak is so dead, by which I mean undead, and cares not for its own existence. It's all about my destruction. I do possess the Sommerlund. Without it, I may be in great trouble here. Does this mean I could not complete this book without the Sommerlund? Highly unlikely. I suspect taking the other path towards the village may have avoided this trouble. As you unsheath the Sommerlund, a vivid golden flame shoots along the blade. The Vordak shrieks in terror, its blood-drenched fingers clawing at a black iron mace that hangs from its belt. It raises the mace to parry your blow, but the sun's sword shears through the iron, a splash of blue flame erupting in its wake. You strike again, curving the golden blade in a great arc. It bites into the Vordak's neck, tearing through its unnatural body and severing it diagonally from collarbone to hip. A sickening, acidic smell chokes your throat as a fountain of green slime erupts from beneath the red robe. The Vordak crumbles and topples from view, its dissolving corpse hissing as it spirals towards the Lake Inrahim. However, if our bird is still paralyzed and is still falling, sheathing your sword, you grab the reins and fight to control your injured mount. You have slain the Vordak, but the battle is not yet won. The Yitkar is losing a lot of blood. It could become unconscious at any moment and drop like a stone. Suddenly, you spot something in the distance. It is a sight that renews your faith in miracles. That's the second time our courage and faith have been renewed. Emerging from a bank of cloud on the skyline is a flying ship. It is a small craft no bigger than an Unoram river barge, with two triangular sails swept back either side of its curving prow. In the fading twilight you can make out a long pennant that flutters from its mast. A faint humming reaches your ears. Your first reaction is disbelief. What you are seeing must be a trick of the light, or some fiendish illusion created by the Dark Lords. However, as the ship floats nearer, your senses tell you that it is quite real indeed. If you have ever been given a crystal star pendant, it doesn't say if you still have it, it says if you were ever given it, because we could have lost it in Book 2. However, we do have Barnadon's Crystal Star Amulet. Standing at a fortified platform in the centre of the strange craft is a blonde-haired young man with deep brooding eyes. Instantly you recognize him. It is Barnadon, the young Sommlending magician who gave you the Crystal Star pendant at the ruins of Raumas, after you saved his life in a Gaiac ambush. You are so stunned by his unexpected appearance that you fail to notice the blood seeping from the Yitkar's mouth. The creature is near to death. Suddenly the great bird lets out a pitiful and agonizing caw. Its wings stiffen and its head falls limp as the last flicker of life escapes from its torn body. It pitches you forward and your stomach heaves as you plummet towards Lake Inrahim. Oh no, it's a completely random dice roll. We get a... Don't jinx it. We didn't get a 9. We're okay. 5 to 8. The chill air whips past your face as you tumble towards Lake Inrahim. The Kran riders, the skyship, and the distant horizon all melt into a kaleidoscope of shapes and images. You fear these will be the last things you will ever see. You have prepared yourself for death and feel calm and relaxed. Suddenly, you feel your body engulfed by a mass of sticky fibres. There is a terrific jolt which leaves you breathless and stunned, lose 2 endurance points. The impossible is happening. You are no longer falling, but rising. You have been caught by a net of sticky strands, like a fly in a web. You rise into the sky towards the flying ship as quickly as you fell. 3 bearded dwarves clad in bright padded battle jerkins pull you aboard an outrigger that runs the length of the hull. There's no time to express your gratitude, for the small skyship is under attack from the Kran riders. At the end of the outrigger, a dwarf is in hand-to-hand combat with a snarling Drakkar. He is losing the battle. As you rush to help him, another of the evil warriors lands in the centre of the craft on top of a fortified platform. We could help the dwarf, or leap from the outrigger onto the fortified platform to fight the Drakkarim in the middle. We're of course going to help the dwarf who's in trouble. The one in the middle there'll be other people there to deal with him. He'd be a threat to them, but let's help the person in trouble rather than just go confront the guy who's on his own somewhere. Now, before going any further, I'm going to do this. Some of you, in fact many of you, may be familiar with the Maaken Companion. It was a brilliant book with a front cover that looked like this, and it was awesome. I'm sorry if you had the American version with the rubbish cover. I apologise, it wasn't a very good cover. And the back cover looked like this. I'm showing these because they are not included in the online PDF. Because the Maaken Companion is also on Project Aeon. And if I go most of the way through the book, we are past... So that is Kai himself coming at the dawning of Sommerlund. We need to go quite far. The Kai Monastery under attack by the army of the Dark Lords. Oh yeah. Yeah, Joe Deaver and Gary Chalk, they had miniature armies and had great fun back in the day. And look at that spell effect that's been created for a photograph. It's really impressive. But here, Barnadon's Skyrider. Here we have the tail end of the vessel. We have some beautiful stars in the background. A sort of floating balloon with, looks like some washing on the line. A beautifully detailed sail. There's supposed to be two sails. There are two sails, with Barnadon himself at the helm. No dwarf crew or Drakarim in sight, but you know, this is a great modelling project, and I do have that Barnadon miniature somewhere. I painted it up years ago, before I could get my hands on a copy of Book 1 of Lone Wolf, so the colours might not be quite correct, and yeah, but I have the figure, and it's the same pose as in the ruins at you know, during the Gaiac attack. So we have a beautiful representation of what the vessel might look like, you know, created by the author himself or someone close to him. And I would strongly suggest that it's not dissimilar to this in its appearance. And I also thought that this image was worth sharing for the video. There's also lots of other lovely stuff in the Maaken Companion, like the fact that Gaiacs speak backwards, as in, to translate a sentence from English to the Gaiac tongue, you first need to reverse the order of the words, then translate the words. A Gaiac will not say, I am going to kill you. They would say, you kill going to am I. And there's a page with like a anatomy of a Gaiac, like, you know, cutting up the body. This is not it. Gaiac word list. Here we go. Excellent stuff. Written symbols. You know, yeah, nice little section on the Gaiac language. There we are. Yeah. Lustral trachea. Is it trachea or trachea? I can't remember. It's the throat anyway. Filters and neutralizes inhaled toxins. Bifocal retina. Sensitive to infrared and normal sunlight. Alimentary canal. Not elementary, alimentary. Impervious to non-corrosive poisons. So far these are all human organs, but they operate differently. Porous body fat. Insulates internal organs from extreme temperatures. Cartilaginous femur. Twice the strength of human bone. Just in the femur. Okay. And yeah, there's loads of good stuff in the Maaken Companion. There's, oh, fancy fleet with some ships. Again, nice work on the bubbles around them. Solo role-playing game. There's a tavern brawl scenario to play, I think, as well. It's all good stuff, you know. Gaiac chat. Many Lone Wolf fans have written to us in the past few months, all wanting to know more about the Gaiacs. In response, here's a brief background history about the... Look, we're going to go and save the dwarf. Okay. I was just looking through to see what else stood out, because I haven't looked at this book in years. And it is a lovely old piece of glorious fun stuff. I could have sworn the barroom brawl type fight, there's a number of different characters who can participate in it. There's also a sort of day in the life of a typical young Sommlending boy called Dickon, because that is a traditional medieval name. Here he is, yeah. Young lad. This looks suspiciously like it. Yeah, game round summary, gaming table. Oh, it's Ragadorn, Lone Wolf. It's almost the traveling companions trying to murder Lone Wolf, but they're slightly different. They're not necessarily the ones we remember. We got only one knight, not two knights. A herb warden. Druid. I think this is the murderer. Mercenary, magician. I think mercenary is the other knight. Possibly. The adventuress, we know who she is. Ranger, not quite so familiar. The merchant. Halvork the merchant, yeah. Character grid. 2 players. 1 player plays Lone Wolf, the mercenary, druid, merchant, adventuress. 2nd player plays landlord, magician, knight, herb warden, and ranger. And then just tells you how to split it for different amounts of players, which is interesting. You know, nice way of taking it. Oh, nice maps. Anyway. Back to the fight. The Drakkar is strangling the dwarf. As he catches sight of you, he releases his grip and smashes his mailed fist into the dwarf's face, sending him tumbling into space. You are inflamed by this cold-blooded murder. You draw your weapon and attack. Due to the speed of your attack, do not deduct any of your own endurance points in the first round of combat. Okay? I won't. With a... I was about to close these, but look at him looking all hardcore there. I'm sorry. The cover of the American edition of the book looks a bit like the American early Fighting Fantasy covers, which looked like skinny He-Man rip-off, very soft 70s, sort of hippie, not really strong warrior kind of look. Is the best way of describing it. Grey Star series had been written by the time the Magnum Companion came out, though. Now... Oh, shit. I've got to go. Okay, false alarm. I'm back. The rhythmic thumping of the washing machine sounded like a rhythmic thumping on the ceiling above, summoning me to the upper story of the house, where I would have been needed. That appears to not be the case. So, let us absolutely vanquish this Drakkarim for his insolence. We're at plus 13, so while he technically has 25 endurance points, it won't be for very long. And when I said earlier in this very episode that I could think of at least one thing that might prevent me from reaching the end of the book safely, it was falling off the side of this ship during this battle. I didn't remember the possibility of failing to be rescued by the ship and falling to my death as the Itakar perished. But anyway, we fight. A 4. Not the greatest roll, but we're still rolling in the top column. So Lone Wolf suffers 2 endurance points of loss and the enemy loses a whole 12. So a 5 or more and we're good. A 7. The enemy loses 18 of his 13 remaining endurance points, and Lone Wolf loses absolutely none. Excellent. The Drakkar falls to his knees and makes a horrible rasping noise as he tries in vain to prise open his shattered death mask. Your blows have staved in his helm and the buckled metal has fractured his skull. You lash out with your foot and kick him from the outrigger, sending him spiralling down to Lake Inrahim to join the dwarf he murdered. But the dwarf is neither dead nor hundreds of feet below. He hangs by his foot, unconscious, snagged in the netting below the outrigger's boards. You grab the dwarf's leg and haul him to safety before continuing the fight. The platform looks empty. No heads are showing above its armoured parapet, but you sense something is wrong. Instinctively, you leap from the outrigger onto the main hull, your weapon poised to strike. Ducking beneath the boom sail, you clamber onto the platform in time to witness a desperate struggle. The blonde-haired magician is pinned to the deck, his left arm skewered by a spear. With a staff in his right hand, he is trying to fend off the dismounted Kran rider. The Drakkar senses your presence. He whirls round and draws a twisted black scimitar from his scabbard and has exactly the same combat stats as his erstwhile companion. We need to try and win in 3 rounds or less. Okay, we'll see what we can do. A 5. Lone Wolf suffers 1 point of damage, and the enemy 14. That's a pretty good start. And I'm just checking 1, 2. So 1 non-combat puts us back on 27, down to 26 again. There we go. Good tracking. Now we roll a 2. This is not great. 10 points of damage to the foe, and Lone Wolf loses 2. Well, guess what? Whatever we roll, our 1 endurance point foe is going down next round. We roll a 6. Lone Wolf suffers 1 more point of endurance and deals 16. It's okay. We can live with the damage. It's all fine. 3 rounds or less. Kind of important, apparently. Got it in 3 exactly due to some terrible rolls. The Drakkar curses you with his dying breath, his cry fading as he falls from the platform. You rush to aid your wounded countryman, but the battle is not over yet. A Kran rider is swooping towards you, a crossbow levelled at your head. He fires and the bolt shoots towards your face. Then a shrill metallic whine rings in your ears as the bolt miraculously ricochets away, deflected by an invisible shield, and we have been given a Crystal Star pendant, so we know who this is. Also, that was a non-combat section, so we're back up to 24. Barnadon lowers his staff, the trace of a wry smile on his pain-racked face. "Alas, I was too slow to protect myself, Lone Wolf," he says, glancing at his arm. You kneel at his side. "We have a weed herb. If he's suffering limb death, oh, we done well." You kneel at his side and free the spear that pins him to the floor, and regain another endurance point while you do so. The wound is serious. Hastily you staunch the bleeding with strips of cloth torn from his dark blue robes. You recognize the robes, for they are the attire of a journey master. It seems that young Barnadon has achieved distinction among his brother magicians since last you met. More poetic. Awesome. "It appears that we are fated to meet in their company," he says, still watching the Kran riders anxiously. "Help me to my feet. We must escape before they drag us from the sky." You support the magician as he grasps the ship's helm, a radiant crystal sphere with hundreds of glowing facets set in a slim silver rod. No sooner has his hand closed around the crystal than there is a tremendous explosion. The explosion is followed by a huge cloud of smoke which engulfs a cabin perched on the rear deck. As the noise rumbles across the desolate salt plain, you hear the agonizing shriek of a wounded Kran. It spirals past the platform, a ragged hole rent in its broken wing. The smoke clears to reveal the grinning face of a dwarf at the cabin window. A smear of soot blackens his rosy cheeks and exaggerates the whiteness of his crooked teeth. He is holding a tube of smoking steel that you assume to be a magic staff until you notice that each of the dwarf crew carry identical staves. As they point them at the swooping Kran, gouts of smoke and flame billow from their tips. Suddenly you recognize the weapons and their wielders. They are dwarves from the mountain kingdom of Bor, armed with one of their inventions, for which these ingenious artisans are justly famous throughout Magnamund. The Kran are terrified by the noise. They turn their leathery tails and fly away, their Dracarim riders powerless to stop them. The primitive guns have claimed only one victim, but nevertheless they have driven off the enemy and saved the skyship from disaster. Barnadon steers the craft about, banking steeply until the ship faces the darkening peaks of the southern mountains and the distinct V-shaped cleft of the Dahir Pass. And now we are to pick a random number. Okay, the random number we have is an 8. It's not in the very narrow 0 to 2 range. We're in the broader 3 to 9 range, so this, whatever it was, is unlikely. Before continuing, however, I want to point out the dwarfs of Bor have gunpowder. They also have guns. They are the only country in the world of Magnamund to know the secret of gunpowder, and they guard it fiercely, not because it makes them very powerful in battle, but because they understand what it would mean if guns and the secret of gunpowder fell into the hands of the other armies. They're doing it for everyone else's protection. They also operate as mercenaries, hiring out their services to the other armies on a small unit basis rather than whole platoons or brigades or armies of them turning up. However, they do this to spy on the other nations, and when they finish their tour of duty as a mercenary, they'll return back to Bor and report on what their employers have been up to. Pretty canny. The dwarves are clearing the deck of battle debris. A dead Drakkar lies sprawled face down across a pile of chests and sacks roped beneath the boom sail. As the dwarves grab his legs to cast him over the side, he suddenly springs to life, sending the dwarves tumbling in all directions. He screams like a fiend, his black axe cutting a wide arc around his blood-smeared body. A curse, vile and evil, echoes from his death mask as he draws back the axe to throw. His target is you. We do have the Kai disciplines of both hunting and sixth sense. Therefore, we just get to turn straight to section 210. And I should have healed another point. You dive aside, your Kai skills saving you from the axe that is spinning towards the platform. Suddenly, a deafening bang rings out, and the Drakkar is flung backwards, his breastplate torn open by a dwarf shot. He gives a long, agonizing death cry as he disappears from sight, tumbling into the darkness that surrounds the speeding skyship. As if in answer to the shot, a menacing roll of thunder rumbles across the darkening plain from Barrakish. It is as if the city itself were cursing your escape. Barnadon appears at your side, his face lined with concern. As he offers a shaky hand to help you to your feet, you notice that the makeshift bandage which binds his wound is soaked with blood. He is pale and weak and close to collapse, and we should restore another point of endurance this section, I believe. I do have the Kai discipline of healing, but does this feel like a good stopping point? No, I think we can go a little further. Clasping your hands around Barnadon's injured arm, you concentrate your Kai skill on helping the torn muscle and splintered bone. The warmth of your healing power numbs the pain and repairs the internal damage sufficiently to be able to remove the blood-soaked strips of cloth. The wound is still open, but you have saved the limb. "We'll help him now, Lone Wolf," shouts a strange voice. You are surprised by this bold claim and turn around to discover who has made it, and all this concentration on healing has allowed us to regain that last point of endurance point. Two dwarves clamber onto the platform and hurry to their young captain's side. One flicks open a red velvet satchel strapped to his barrel-like chest and removes a glass vial and a clean linen bandage. They attend to the wound, and as his strength returns, Barnadon listens intently to your account of the terrifying events that have led up to this meeting. As you conclude your woeful tale, Barnadon speaks, his voice full of grim determination. The future of Sommerlund rests in our hands, Lone Wolf. Bugger! We're doing that again! The future of Sommerlund rests in our hands, Lone Wolf. We must stop Dark Lord Harkon from destroying the Book of the Magnakai. I have heard tell of the Tomb of the Marjan from the nomads of the Dry Main. They say it is a terrible place, a place of horror and death, for what little there is left to die there. For what little there... To what little there is left... Ah, no, got it! They say it is a terrible place, a place of horror and death for what little is left to die there. It lies beyond the Dahir, near the oasis of Baal Loftan. That is all I know, for Marjan hid their tombs well, and what few traces remained have long since disappeared beneath the shifting sands of the Dry Main. Your face conveys the disappointment you feel upon hearing these words, but we do have a crystal prism that might be of assistance. However, all is not lost, says Barnadon, undaunted. There is a man who can guide us there. His name is Tipasa Edoruk, Tipasa the Wanderer. It is he who we must seek, for he is the only man who has ever entered the Tomb of Marjan and lived to tell the tale. And with that, I think we will end the episode here. There's been 2 interruptions already. One was blatantly me going to get the Magnum Companion and pull it up so we could look at it. It's a lovely book. I highly recommend it if you're interested in stuff to do with Magnum at all. I mean, yes, there's later books to do with the role-playing games, which are great, but it's just a really nice source book, and you can tell it's kind of child-friendly, right? It's aimed at a somewhat younger audience. And hey, you know what? Before entering the episode, actually, come on. I want to read this bit, right? Gaiac chat. Many Lone Wolf fans have written to us in the past few months, all wanting to know more about the Gaiacs. In response, here's a brief background history about the race that will be featured in greater detail in the forthcoming Magnum Companion. Ah, so this must have originally been written in, like, the Lone Wolf newsletter or something? Gaiacs are a breed of evil goblinoids composed of 3 main subspecies: mountain Gaiacs, swamp Gaiacs, and Saals. Of these, the mountain Gaiacs are by far the stronger and more prolific type, accounting for over 90% of the total Gaiac population. Originally bred as slaves, the Gaiacs have evolved into a formidable fighting force. They have developed their own language and a warlike society based on the brutal concept of the strongest Gaiacs ruling over the weaker or socially inferior breeds. Their demonic masters, the Dark Lords, use them to form the mainstay of their armies, and as slaves for the construction of fortresses and cities within their domain. The largest and most notorious of these strongholds is Helgadad, a city that owes its name to the Gaiac language. Hel means black, and Gedad means city. Although it was originally believed that they occupied only mountainous regions of northern Magnamund, there is growing evidence to support the belief that Gaiacs have been spawned on other worlds. They are small and grey-skinned, and tend to favour weapons and armour of black steel. As all mountain Gaiacs are part of a strict military society, the clothing that they wear is usually the same colour as their regiment's flag or banner. Shields and banners usually depict the personal symbol of the regiment's leader, although it is common for a Dark Lord emblem or device to be used in conjunction with a Gaiac regiment symbol. Many Gaiac regiments in the service of a Dark Lord have a Gorg as leader. These large, 10 feet plus tool, cold-blooded reptilians are a tribal, swamp-dwelling breed of giant troglodyte. Their intelligence and their uncanny battle wisdom are much sought after by evil army leaders, for the Gorgas are motivated to fight by one overwhelming desire, the taste for human flesh. To feast upon the field of battle is all that they usually demand in return for their services. Not necessarily during the battle, afterwards probably as well. When a Gorgas is engaged in combat, it exudes a potent battle musk. Scent glands that ridge the underside of its tail secrete an oil that blocks its sense of fear or terror, even against magical attacks. This scent is odorless and colourless, and undetectable by all creatures except Gorgas and Gyaks. When Gyaks inhale the scent, a chemical reaction takes place in their blood, stirring them to fearlessness and crazed battle frenzy. This highlights the often scientific approach that Joe Diva takes to his explanation of the monsters and creatures. For instance, magic in Magnamund isn't magic, it's psychic abilities, quite often, and described as such. Anyway, with that, I am going to end the episode here. We're on a flying ship, we haven't fallen off it, that's great. I'm going to have to go looking for one particular illustration from the fight, which I obviously missed, because it's a great video thumbnail and one of the more memorable pictures from that fight. But hey, see you all next time. I hope you all enjoyed this episode, and I hope you don't mind me going back to get the key and the prism, as I strongly suspect at least one of them will be vital to the completion of the adventure, and I could have replayed up to that point quite easily without any serious, difficulties. So, bye for now, and just remember, we're doing this for Sommerlund and the Kai.